Welcome, hustlers, to the Live Your Lifestyle movement. I'm glad you made the decision to live life on your terms. We help millennials become the directors of their own lives. My name is Austin Varley, and you're going to learn and master tactful strategies, blueprints, lessons, and the ways of the 5% around the world. But first, what's your ideal lifestyle? Now that you know what you want in your future, let's create you a blueprint to achieve it. It's only a matter of time until you are living your ideal lifestyle. Welcome, little hustlers, to the Live Your Lifestyle movement. I'm excited for today's show. We have guest speaker Brody Kern, who is a public speaker and serial entrepreneur. Currently owns and operates a number of businesses, including a commercial real estate brokerage, a telecom marketing agency, and a high-risk payment processing company. He is a life coach and speaks about a variety of topics, but you guys hear me enough. So how are you doing, Brody? Thanks for being on the show.
Good, man. Good. I'm excited about it.
Thank you. So we'll just dive right in. So tell us a little bit about your background, how you got started into entrepreneurship, and how you got started on your journey.
So I guess to really start it off as far as my start in entrepreneurship, I had and we'll get into that, but I had a bit of a rocky start to life, after high school. And then when I was about 21, or actually about 22, I got into real estate, right? And I started out as a buyer's agent on a team. I started selling residential real estate, and it became very clear quickly that I was incapable of working for anyone else. Right? I had a great job, really liked the people that I work with, but I found a way to be unhappy. Right? So it got to the point where it wasn't how was I going to be an entrepreneur. It was how was I not going to be an entrepreneur. Right? I had no other option but to go into business for myself.
All right, nice. And you kind of want to just like be your own boss and was it hard for you to take orders from someone, or were you just like too ADHD?
Yes. So it was whenever I started, if I had a problem with the way we were growing the business, I would put in my 2 cents. I was very outspoken. But it just seemed that I needed a little more control. Maybe call me a control freak, maybe not, but I wanted to have a say in where the business went. And it seemed that in my current position, I would never always have that. Right. So I realized that all I was a resource to help someone else reach their goals. Right. And I wanted my effort to directly correlate to me reaching mine.
All right. And you wanted like you to be heard and like kind of like taken in favor. So you talked about like your little bit like your drug, like your little rocky start off. So you mind like touching about that? Like what kind of was your rocky start off? How'd you overcome it?
Yeah. So, I guess to paint the picture, early on in life, grew up totally normal childhood, grew up in the Midwest, middle class family, everything was great. I played sports pretty competitively growing up. And then, when college came around, I decided to not move forward with playing baseball. And I wanted to, at this point, I had already developed some sort of substance issue, but I decided to go to a big school and live that college party life. You know what I mean? And so I went to school at Mizzou. And what happened was I had developed a serious drug and alcohol problem, and whether that be, I wasn't sure where this all came from, but it seemed to me that I was incapable of dealing with life, right? I was very, very insecure at this point. Whenever I got rid of sports and competition, my purpose had kind of fallen off, right? So then I just took to the next thing that I was doing, which was partying. Yeah. And it got to the point, my junior year of college, I was just basically dead by 21. I was ended up in the hospital all the time, overdose after overdose. And it landed myself in rehab out of sheer desperation. Then I started this journey of sobriety, right? And this is where I started to have to become self-aware. I had to look at myself, had to face, the person that I was at the time. And that was something that I had never done, right? And I think that's something that a lot of people never have to go through unless they hit a situation like that. But the self-awareness that I gained through that is one of my biggest attributes now that helps me succeed, right? Understanding what's going on with myself, understanding when I'm fearful, understanding when those fears are unsubstantiated. And that is all, a huge learning experience. And I often say in my addiction, that full speed, like full tilt mentality, I take it with everything I do. I obsess with everything I do. And it really helps me now that I've been able to focus that energy when I sit down and practice things like gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
That is one of the things I'm super grateful that I was born with that all or nothing mindset, right?
That's awesome.
Because like I always say that the same reason I will make like millions of dollars is the same exact reason that I will drink myself to death.
Mm-hmm. So you said how like you gave up sports, you gave up your competitive edge, and then you went to partying. Did you use like partying, drugs, alcohol kind of as like an scapegoat to escape reality?
Absolutely, man. And I think that whenever I was in high school, life was very, very easy. Like I said, everything was smooth. My upbringing, family life, good, all of it. And then I went to college. I started feeling a lot of pressure, just like every 19 or 20-year-old does, with as far as what am I going to do with my life? What's the next step? Thinking that you need to have it all figured out then. The only difference is that I had never, for some reason, developed any tools to deal with stress or deal with anxiety, right? And I hadn't had a ton of it before then, but that was when I really started to experience anxiety and depression on a level that I had never before. And rather than learning how to cope with life, I just took the easy route out because, I just wasn't capable of handling it. So I took the easy route out, which was numbing it with drugs and alcohol.
And just kind of like avoiding the problem and avoiding like the whole situation. Through your journey, what kind of skills and coping systems did you learn to kind of help you with anxiety, to help you go through your day to day?
So that's a good question. And a lot of it traces back to AA. So when you're in rehab, they teach you a 12-step program. They teach you Alcoholics Anonymous, and AA is still something that I'm very involved in. It's kind of the key to everything for me. But a lot of it comes down to self-awareness, right? Like before, I would be feeling all of this pressure, whether it be anxiety, depression, fear, whatever it was, I would kind of just shut down, or I would numb myself, right? Because I could postpone it for 12 hours or for a week or for 3 weeks or however long I went on a run, right?
You kind of just avoid the whole situation.
Right. But now, rather than getting overwhelmed, it's all about being self-aware enough to understand what's going on and then implementing the tools that AA has taught me. So whether that be, it gives you a whole toolkit of what you need to do in certain situations and really just how to deal with life on life's terms. And it's all stuff that people, that normal people develop throughout life, or some don't. But the only way for me to learn it was to hit rock bottom and go into AA.
Oh, yeah. And I think a lot of people can relate that.
What's funny is most people do have some exposure to that in their life, right? Whether it be an uncle or a parent or a friend, most people are exposed to addiction in one way or another. And it's a topic that I really, really like because it is, at the core, it's who I am. You know what I mean? Like I said earlier, the reason that I am successful is the same reason that
you went down. Because you have that all-in mindset. But totally. Kind of trying to kind of taught you to kind of like just deal with your problems head on and just use all the tools that they taught you.
Right, totally. So like, for example, it does teach you to deal with those problems head on. So like now I know that as I've grown in business and in personal development, which we'll go into personal development because that's like my true passion. But I know that when something I know that uncomfortability is good, right? And when something makes me uncomfortable, I know that that's what I need to be doing. And I've taken it so far to a point, like even when I am planning out my day, I order my list of to-do from least comfortable to most comfortable, right? Because if it's more uncomfortable, I've come to realize that it's more important.
And it's kind of something that you need to get done. There's even like some people I've even talked to, they even like prioritize their day and they hit the one that's the most important right off the bat because it's so much easier to get the first thing done right away.
Right, exactly.
How important would you say, like, so you said self-awareness a lot with like AA. How important would you say self-awareness is in one, being a person, and two, just like, trying to elevate someone's game in the entrepreneur world?
Well, so I think it is probably the most important thing for personal development or for entrepreneurship, because when you are posed with a problem and you're feeling a certain way about it, right? You're feeling stress or anxiety about it, but you can't tell like, let's say for example, someone is looking at quitting their job and becoming an entrepreneur, right? Someone is feeling a lot of fear about that. It could be actually two things. They could have a bunch of unsubstantiated fear from things that they know about taking risk, but if they were self-aware enough to know whether it is legitimate fear, right? Something that they're assessing the risk. But most people, you say, well, you worked a job right now, and I was talking to someone, you were telling me, I want to quit my job, I want to do this. And I was like, okay, well, why don't you do it? And someone is just saying, Well, I can't because of this reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, a lot of times what you're hearing is just an excuse backed by fear, right? Most of the time, whatever the reason is, you can still do it.
Mm-hmm.
So being self-aware enough to understand when you are delude yourself of the situation or if you're actually making a good decision on it.
Oh yeah, and just being aware of like everything that's going to go with that decision too.
Right.
So what was the effect of personal development on you, and when did you really start diving into personal development and growing your inner world?
Here's what I realized. So I got sober, then I got into real estate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And through getting sober, I had to look at myself, become self-aware, and there's a certain level of growth that you get in that because then I started focusing on being the best version of myself that I can be. So what happened was when I first got into real estate, I started chasing the money really hard, right? Just like any entrepreneur, you want to chase the money. I had a lot of success doing well, but then I started to take a look at personal development due to a mentor that I had at the time. She kind of led me in that direction. And what I found was that when I started focusing on myself and focusing on, elevating who I was as a person so that I could drive more value to my clients, whenever I started focusing on bettering myself, I started to increase my income more so than when I was focusing on increasing my income. And that was when a light bulb kind of went off for me. I realized that the key to everything, if you do not build the foundation, if you do not lay the foundation with yourself, you're never going to be able to grow. And if you do grow your business, right, but you don't have a solid foundation as a person, then at some point it's going to crumble.
It's going to fall down.
Right.
I like that. And even Jim Rohn always said, like, if you work on your job, you can make a living, but if you work on yourself, you can make a fortune.
Totally. That's it.
So what do you do for personal development? Do you read? Do you listen to audiobooks? Do you, what are kind of some of your daily personal development rituals?
Yeah. So I have that's a great question. I have a very strict morning routine that I like.
Okay.
And my whole morning routine is about helping me forget the fact that I'm fearful. So, I feel just like anyone, I feel fear in everything that I do, right? And probably more so than a lot because, like I said before, I totally just want to hide from everything. It's, at the core, if it was up to me, I would just drink and do drugs to hide from all my problems, right? Right. But so what I've done is in the morning, I try to, so when I wake up, I do some free writing. I have some silent time, and then I do 10 minutes of meditation. And then, that morning time, that quiet time allows me to create some headspace, which really allows me to prime myself for the day. And also I have all these little things that I knock off of my to-do list in the morning. So, in my routine that creates little wins, right? And whenever I create little wins for myself, it builds your confidence each day. And then I'm ready to actually tackle my day. And then past that, I read a ton. I listen to a ton of audiobooks, podcasts, all that. I try to never stagnate as far as what I'm learning because, if you ever get to the point where you're not learning something, you're getting worse, right? Right. So, I'm always consuming content, trying to think outside the box, really just scale myself as a person.
And just always choosing growth in the moment, as one of my mentors always says. So with meditation, how important do you think meditation is?
So,
or how has that helped you?
So meditation is great, man. And it's very tough for me to slow my brain down. So, when I first started doing meditation, and I don't do anything crazy. I do a 10-minute guided meditation every day through the app Headspace. Have you ever heard of that?
Headspace?
Yeah, Headspace. It's a great app.
Headspace.
But, it just creates, and that's what it does. It creates a little bit of headspace, right? And meditation really breeds one thing. All meditation is doing is promoting focus, right? And that's kind of the key ingredient for everything. And meditation teaches you to focus on your breath, focus on your thoughts, focus on everything within so that you can have control of the whole situation, right? It creates headspace. That's why that app, the name for that app is so good.
No, I like that. I'm actually going to look that up.
Yeah. And, I think that it is, and it's different for everyone. Some people have more trouble with it than others. Some people have a lot. I think that I have a lot of trouble with it, but it's important to, again, sit down and try to make that happen. Because if I can knock through 10 minutes of meditation in the morning, it's a huge win for me.
It makes you just feel better and get ready to tackle your day.
Right.
What advice would you give someone? So say they wanted to, start meditating, but like they're like, Brody, I'm always, thinking, my head's all over the place. I can't really like sit down and meditate. Like what's some tips that you would help to give them?
start knocking off a little bit. If you can only do 2 minutes, do 2 minutes, right? Because what I noticed in the beginning is, I do it for 5-6 minutes, right? But I would only get in that 5 or 6 minutes. If I was really, really trying, I could get a split like 2 or 3 seconds of the quiet that everyone talks about within meditation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get just a couple seconds of it, you're like, oh, that's what it's about right there. And as I progress, now I can get a couple minutes of that true silence, right?
Okay.
And it's just great to overall promote a more stoic way of thinking,
Mm-hmm.
in order to create the quiet so that you can really create space in your mind for the things that matter.
Oh yeah, and it just helps really like just kind of even kind of another way of escaping and just like getting more into your inner self. When you got into real estate is right around the time when you were also like getting on to the sober path. So what were some of the struggles you had to overcome in the real estate industry?
So, real estate is a funny one. It's an interesting one to start with as well, residential real estate, because there are a lot of challenges that go in. It's very slow to start, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I started off, I was, I had some success early on, but still, like what happens is, in just like any sales job, I came out the gates really hot, started making some money, but I hadn't filled my pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
So then whenever that hit, it just like totally shattered my world. I felt super insecure about the situation. I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do? Like, did I make the right choice coming into a commission only business?
Mm-hmm.
Should I have just gone for some salary job? Right. There's tons of fear and anxiety that comes with a job like that. And, you have to overcome that stuff. And then, it's all sorts of challenges that you see people in sales jobs go through, right? You go through the pipeline issue. Then, you just take on the constant stress and anxiety of keeping it full.
Oh, yeah.
But it's all, and then, so taking real estate from, just being a salesperson, hustling a lot and just kind of being real chaotic with it to trying to narrow it down into a business, right?
Mm-hmm.
So understanding how many calls it took me to get a lead and then how many leads it took me to take a deal to closing, right? So then starting to look at it like a business was a huge breakthrough for me in my real estate business.
And okay, I love that. And that even just goes with the quote, like, treat it like a hobby, it's going to pay you like a hobby, but treat it like a business and it'll pay you like a business.
Totally.
So do you think like now, on your journey, like so far ahead, are you happy that you went into real estate and just all the struggles that it taught you? Because 100% commission, that is hard, especially in your situation.
I am totally. So residential real estate is not my favorite business that I have, right? I do other things that I really, really enjoy, more so than real estate. But I do have a passion for real estate and a love for real estate because real estate was what, really started my life off on the right turn. I had just gotten sober. I was ironically bartending for a while I was sober.
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing that at night, and I was, trying to do real estate during the day. And real estate was what, helped me build some confidence and realize that I could actually do this thing,
Mm-hmm.
And it taught me to look at stuff like a business. It taught me that I could work for myself. And I will always be super grateful to the space of real estate for that. And, I'm not sure that I will actually sell real estate forever, but I will always buy real estate. Always buy real estate. It is it's a great investment vehicle. It's a super fun space, and overall, it's a great way to start.
Mm-hmm. How long have you been in the real estate industry now?
So I've been around real estate for about 3 years now.
3 years. Have you seen it change at all in the 3 years that you've been doing this, or?
I have, totally. I've seen change within myself. I've seen change with how I run the business, and I've seen change within the market. It is. I've seen it. Luckily, since I've gotten into it, the market's been pretty good nationwide. Mm-hmm. It's been
back up.
Yeah, it's been growing, and we've had a couple slow points. I have not seen a huge downturn in real estate since I've gotten into it, but I anticipate that one will be coming before long, and that's when. But I have been priming myself to get that ready. I've been lining up everything with the banks, saving cash, because whenever the market downturns, real estate being a real estate salesperson isn't my only source of income, mm-hmm. right? So that's whenever I am going to buy as much real estate as I possibly can, whenever that downturn comes.
So then I'm
going to be able to supplement one for the other when that comes. I'm actually, but I haven't seen everything that comes with it. I was in high school around the 2008, 2009 crash, right? And I am glad that I was, because, that being one of the biggest real estate crashes in history, I can't imagine what that does to the space overall. And seeing that would be very stressful.
Yeah, very devastating. You said like you're about to a crash, or not even a crash, like something, a downturn's going to come.
Right.
Do you see a trend in real estate's market that kind of goes with that?
Well, so I am in the Midwest, right? And, it seems that as rates rise, things are going to start slowing down. And, you're starting us in the Midwest, we stay quite a bit behind when things happen in the coast. So I typically try to keep an eye on what's going on in each of the coasts as far as their real estate markets, because I know in 6-12 months, that's what's going to be happening in our market.
Okay, that's smart. And that's even just staying ahead of the curve.
Right.
So what is some of the advice you give to people if they are just starting into their real estate careers, they're just getting started? What are some tips that you'd give them?
So and it's funny, it's tough to picture or to figure out who will be good and who will be not, and who will not be in real estate. I've taken on agents that I think will be good and they haven't been, and vice versa. What I tell agents is to just push, and this is luckily something that came natural for me with my full speed mindset, but I just push, man. Get on the phone all day long, call anyone call the phone book, whatever, go knock on doors. Really the only thing that's going to create results is action. Sitting around doing not doing a lot. And in the beginning, you don't have to be that purposeful with your action. Now, if I'm not focusing on the right things for the business, then I'm being counterproductive. But in the beginning, you just do anything to try to gain some traction.
And just get the ball rolling.
Right.
So what is some of your processes? How do you guys find leads, or how do you guys get your name out there to find business?
Right. So for real estate, we do a lot of direct marketing, a lot of outbound calling. And this kind of helps with me having a background in telecommunications now. But, a lot of cold calling neighborhoods, cold calling for sale by owners, cold calling expired listings. Then we have an online lead generation system where it is it's a whole lead generation platform. We have a whole online marketing campaign that we do: Facebook advertising, Google AdWords, etc., email campaigns, all of it.
The drip campaigns and all that.
Yeah, tons of drip campaigns for each type of buyer. I probably got 6 or 7 different drip campaigns that we use, and that's all stuff that we developed.
Nice. So what kind of made you start doing public speaking? What kind of brought that out to you?
So here's the thing. I always enjoyed speaking. I debated competitively in high school. I was on the debate team, really enjoyed that. Always loved talking. I've always been super social in that, huge extrovert. But when I hit the point, whenever I was getting sober, I was really focusing on personal development. I was starting to find success. I started to feel obligated to really share my message. You know what I mean? And I thought, okay, where I get the most enjoyment out, and I realized this in helping other alcoholics and helping other entrepreneurs, friends or whatever that were trying to get started, is that's where I got the most fulfillment. So then that's when I started growing my Instagram, and it's funny, that's actually how we met. And I just felt this underlying obligation to share my message. And then when I started to do it, I felt a ton of fear about that. There was a ton of fear and anxiety. Will people like what I have to say, etc. Right? Just all the normal fears about putting yourself out there. And I started to get a really positive response. And then I knew that I wanted to speak, and then I just kind of had this whole vision, man. It was all laid out in front of me. I needed to go and share. And stuff started happening. Podcasts started happening. Built out my personal site. Started getting traction. And now I'm just taking speaking engagements where I can get them and fit them into my schedule, and going from there. Eventually, I would like to only do that full time. That's awesome. Just reach as many people as possible.
And I mean, that's great too. And especially, with public speaking, and especially your story with everything, it is really hard to, put yourself out there. How did you kind of overcome that fear and because everyone will depict their actions based off other people's opinions, because they don't want to
right.
Well, what is that person going to think? What are they going to say? Will my message even get it? How did you kind of get over that fear?
Right. Well, and this may be characteristic to me, but the only way I saw to do it was to essentially, is just close my eyes and jump.
Hmm.
You know,
And
it
just
was
put
just
yourself
like
out
I'm
there.
just going to have to dive in. I have no other option because and I'm very open about my story. I'm very raw, about what has gone on with me because I want to be transparent. I want to be vulnerable. I want people to see that I'm not bullshitting. I'm not I'm not out here saying I'm you know making $10 million. I'm not posting a bunch of ignorant cars that I don't have and shit like that you see online. I'm
Hmm.
I am depicting where I'm really at in life and what struggles I'm going through and how I can help other people overcome similar struggles, right? That's
Hmm.
all I'm out there saying. I'm sharing my experiences, what has happened and how it may be able to help other people.
And you're just being real to everyone, and people can connect to that.
Right.
That's awesome. So would you always say, like, because you said, like, you wanted to help alcoholics and entrepreneurs, you say, like, you have this desire to just, like, help them and move them forward on their paths?
I do, man. I do. And it wasn't always that way. I wasn't always a selfless person, in my addiction I was a pretty selfish person.
Hmm.
But and I one thing, and why I say that is because it's also not a totally noble venture. Whenever I'm helping other alcoholics or entrepreneurs, like whenever I'm helping other alcoholics, that is what's keeping me sober, right?
Hmm.
Because I am seeing them succeed and I am seeing myself actually do something that matters, right?
Hmm.
And that is what helps keep me sober. And it's the same with entrepreneurship, helping other people succeed is really what makes me feel internal success.
And it just makes you feel good. And just, could you even, like, see you in them in, like, little areas?
Oh, tons, man. And that's that's whenever it really cues that, I can help this person, right? I see them encountering something that I have before,
Hmm.
and maybe my way will work for them, or maybe sharing my way will help them find a way that can work for them.
That's awesome. How did you kind of, like, get your public speaking career going? Like, how did you get gigs, or how did you even put yourself out there?
So that's a tough one. And Instagram was a great way to accomplish that. So
Okay.
I started building a following, started to show my voice on there. Then I started to do podcast episodes, right? And then that helps. That's a great reference point for people to see some of my stuff, And then I started calling on colleges, started calling on really anywhere that I could at that time, in order
Okay.
to just all I wanted to do was get myself on stage and get my voice out there, right? Start putting out some video content, all stuff that I am still kind of in the progress of doing. We're early on in that career,
Hmm.
and that is something that I am going to go full speed at for quite a while.
That's awesome, though. And it's even just like, putting yourself out there, calling the actual places that do the speaking and doing the gigs. So what tips would you give to someone who wanted to start their public speaking? Just get themselves out there, or
Get themselves out there. I would start messaging any sort of influencer that you can find on Instagram, Twitter, whatever. Try to do some sort of connect with them. Try to get on podcasts. Start your own podcast. Just get yourself and your voice in front of as many possible people as you can. It's the only way to get going. Put video content out there. The only
mm,
way to you cannot get speaking engagements or podcast appearances or any of that if you do not have any content, right? Because
oh
then at
yeah,
that point you're like, well, let me, I want to come speak at your event, or I want to speak at this place, or I want to be on your podcast, right? Well, and they say, okay, well, where can I check your stuff out? And you've got nothing, right? You're like, well, I promise I'm real good.
right.
It just doesn't work like that.
You need to have some type of social proof or something to, like, give them value, and even just give them
Totally.
value to get your name out there. Oh yeah. So when you are public speaking and you're talking and you're kind of putting yourself out there, I mean, obviously you're gonna get good people that will appreciate you, but no matter what you do in life, you're always gonna get haters, and you're always gonna get people that are kind of gonna hate on you or kind of, like, bash you or put you down. How do you
Right.
overcome that?
Right. So that's a great question, and you are always going to have critics.
Mm,
Um, and the best thing to do, is just keep full speed with your mission. Me growing up in the Midwest, whenever I started my Instagram and I started putting out content and I started doing all of this stuff, people around me were just like, dude, what are you doing?
mm,
They're like, you're not going to speak on stage. You're not going to you're not going to do any of this stuff. Like, who do you think you are? Right.
right.
And,
Always.
in a sense, they were kind of right. I mean, I had no reason to say I can go do all of this. But the thing is, I was so obsessed with the mission and just so determined that it didn't matter. It didn't matter what I thought. It didn't matter what they thought. Like, I needed to get my message out there.
And you
know,
wanted.
and you have to just persist. In order to be an entrepreneur, in order to be successful at all, you have to be very, very resilient in every sense of the word, right? There's always going to be negative effects. Nothing in life is going to come easy. You have to roll that shit off.
I love that. And it's pretty much just like dropping whatever people think of you and just not caring about it.
Yeah, dude, who cares? Like, it does nothing. There are no big deals at all, anytime.
What I always even tell people is, like, every time when you say you want to do something and people are like, oh, you can't do that, or you can't do this, or who do you think you are? I always say, well, they're small-minded. You know, they don't think, you know, you're very open-minded. You're thinking of the big picture. They're not thinking that way. Maybe they wish they were, so that's why they put you down.
Totally. You know, and I see it, and it's not even always malicious. You know, I see it with my parents, for example.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Families are the hardest too.
Yeah, talking to them about the things that I want to accomplish in the next couple of years, and you know, they'll tell me to slow down. They're like, dude, you've got great income. You know, you guys are happy. Why don't you just slow down and enjoy it? And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, you just don't get it. What I'm like, it's going to be much bigger than this. And they're like, why? You know, they just don't get it. And it's not anything to them. Like, it doesn't always have to be malicious, but a small-minded mindset is something that can really, really hurt you. And you have to see big picture.
Oh yeah. And I think it's also the hardest too is when you try to get over family, because, you know, that's like that's your biggest influence, and that's, you know, who you're always around. So when they always are thinking different, you know, I feel like a lot of people get so hard going over that with family, with, you know, haters and all this. How big would you say this, like, circle of influence and then the influence that you surround yourself with is?
So that's very, very important, right? Because, you know, like the classic Jim Rohn quote about, you know, you are who you surround yourself with, or what does he say? You're the sum of the 5 people you hang around the most.
Yeah, it's like the 5 people that you hang around. Like, you're the average of the 5 people that you hang around the most.
Right. You know, it's so true. And, you know, I noticed it whenever I was young. If I was hanging around guys who weren't doing good things, I wasn't doing good things. And now, you know, I try to make sure that I am the least successful or smart person in the room, so that I can learn. You know, I surround myself with people who are 5, 6, 7, 10 steps ahead of me, right? Because that's the only way I can learn, right? And you learn from mistakes, but they don't all have to be yours, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's all mentorship.
They don't all have to be yours. So I can watch these guys and their growth, and I can say, okay, how can I skip 3 steps that they took, you know?
And how can I, like, cut my learning curve in half and, you know, learn from their mistakes? So when did you kind of, you know, learn that? When did that kind of come up in your life about, like, you know, the influence around you is really what makes you, and what did you kind of shift it?
So what happened is when I first got sober, I didn't know, when I was bartending, I didn't know what I was going to do with myself, and I was really stressing out about it. And I had a buddy who was in commercial real estate and said, you know, he really pushed me to get my real estate license. And then I noticed that whenever I was hanging around him, I was growing at a much faster pace than when I was not, right? Than when I was by myself, or than if I was hanging out with some other guys. And that's when it kind of clicked for me. I'm like, okay, so what if I had 10 of these guys that I talk to all the time? How fast could I be growing then?
And you're just always trying to elevate and, you know, make your circle of influence even, like, more prime.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Do you have any, like, tips and tricks for people to, like, reach out? Like, it's kind of helped you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, you have to, and again, it's just going full speed. I mean, I tried to meet as many people as I could. When someone, you know, I met someone and they started to tell me about their business, their life, etc. You know, just be natural. And I was lucky that I'm naturally inquisitive, but ask questions, man, learn. You know, if I meet someone and I don't know anything about their business, I make it my business to learn it so that I can add some value to them in the future in one way or another, right? Because then when you start adding value to the other people, it's going to come back to you. That's really all I focus on these days, is driving value to others, and then everything else kind of takes care of itself.
I love that. And it's just also, like, just giving value just to give, and then, you know, the law of giving just works in your favor. Nice. What are, like, so with personal development, you know, you've read a lot, you've listened to a lot. What are either top 3 books or even just, like, top 3 things someone should listen to really, you know, help their personal development and build that foundation?
That's a good question, and it's tough to say because it's going to be relative to every person, right? But there are some books that I think are important. Whenever I first started out, and I was really just focused on, it depends on where someone is at in their stage. Whenever I was focused on money and focused on really getting the businesses going and hustling, a couple Grant Cardone books, the 10X Rule, Be Obsessed or Be Average. Those books were huge for me at that time, right? But then when I started to focus on personal development, books like Think or Grow Rich.
Oh yeah.
Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill is amazing, but you have to be ready. You have to be ready for that book, because if I would have read that book, 2 years before I did, I would have been like, this isn't, this is gypsy. This is a gypsy book. This, like, what is this dude talking about?
The 10 Step to Riches, really, what's this, blah, blah, blah.
Right, and it being like a lot of law of attraction type stuff. I would have thought that's total bullshit at one time.
Oh yeah.
Right, I just wasn't. I wouldn't have been ready for that book. But when the time comes that you start to understand that kind of stuff, that book is key. That book is very key.
Oh yeah, and I love it. One of the things I love in that book is it even says, like, when you read this book, you're gonna have a nugget. And he's like, might come in the beginning, might become at the end of it, but like it's gonna come to you. So what else would you say? So, like, be obsessed. Like, so if you're on your hustle, be obsessed, be average. Think and Grow Rich. Is there another one?
God, I've read so many books. It's tough. It's tough to really nail down what is the most beneficial. The Alchemist. Have you ever read that book?
No, but someone else that I've interviewed told me to go read that one. I heard that was a really good one.
I'll read that book like once a year. It is. It's very, very good. That book does a lot for me. Every time I read it, I pick up something new. But man, I mean, all the content I've consumed. Tim Ferriss. Tim Ferriss is my favorite author out there. His book Tools of Titans, his most recent one, is really good. I started with the 4-hour work week. It helped me really, understand how I could compact 40 hours of work into a much smaller time.
And just really get like focusing on like your top priorities. And that's even like what you stated earlier, when someone's first starting their real estate career, do all the certain actions that they can to get things going. Now where you're at in your career, it's those certain ones that give you the most, value.
Right.
So if you could, what 3 tips would you tell your 21-year-old self?
Oh, that's tough. I would tell my 21-year-old self to expel all negativity from my life. Anyone that was being negative about what my mission was or what I was doing, to just, whether it be temporary or permanent, just get rid of that. That's number one, because I am very guilty of absorbing others' negativity. So kind of getting all toxic relationships out is a must. 2, I would tell myself to read and consume more content, right, as much as possible. And then 3, I would tell myself to stop stressing about where I'm at right now. I thought that I should have been so much farther ahead at 21, 22, 23, whenever in reality I could do the wrong thing for the next 10 years and still have all the time in the world to succeed.
I love that. And it's also like, I feel like a lot of people do that, is they'll compare themselves, especially with the power of social media, they'll compare themselves to like another 20-year-old that's maybe a multimillionaire, and they're like, oh, that's where I should be. But it's like, everything happens for a reason, just keep moving forward. So how do you deal with failure? I mean, because no matter what, some people always think they see the very successful people and like, oh, they never fail. Everyone fails on a daily basis even. How do you deal with failure? It's a mindset. It's a mindset thing, man. You can let it get you down, or you can realize that you're a step closer to the success, right? I love that. And it's just like a stepping stone.
Every single failure, as long as you do not give up on the mission, is a step closer to succeeding.
Awesome. And before you touched about it a little bit, you said, you have multiple sources of income. How important do you think multiple sources of income is for a person?
I think it's huge. I think it's huge because, especially if you're in something like real estate or, something that having all your eggs in one basket in one profession can be very detrimental when that thing takes a turn. And whether it be any business, anything can happen, right? Like, for example, I just saw that, every Toys R Us in the country is shutting down, right? Guarantee you, whoever started, I don't know anything about Toys R Us's backstory, but whoever started that company, they never thought that thing was going to fail, right? But it is. And times change, everything changes quickly. Blockbuster never thought they were going to fail.
No, and then
You know,
it's always just keeping up on the competition too.
And those are on a large scale. Imagine what can happen to you on a smaller scale. If things like that can fail, what kind of influences is the economy going to have on your business? You know, you have to have multiple streams.
And just always like keeping your nest egg good and just keeping money flowing in. So what would you like to see change in this world? Like whether that's climate change, whether that's like, you know, people, the way that they deal with their lives. I mean, it can be anything. Even I had one guy even say, hey, you wish that, you know, some actors would stop acting. Like,
man, I wish that people would become more self-aware.
More self-aware.
Plain and simple.
Now you're saying like more self-aware of like just themselves or of
yep,
like the
yep,
opportunities?
of their actions, of, you know, their actions, the consequences of their actions, you know, really why they think certain things. I watch so many people just be self-absorbed and ego and just run off of that all day long. That, I mean, it's there's no way to sustain that way.
Right. No, I love that. And I think that would help us a lot. So real quick before you go, what's like the biggest tip you would give someone if they wanted to like help with fear?
Run straight at it, go for it. You know, if you can be paralyzed by thinking, you know, like analysis paralysis. If you think about it too much, you'll cower or you'll avoid it or whatever. The best thing is to close your eyes and just sprint straight at it.
And just go after it.
Go after it.
Even kind of goes with Think and Grow Rich, that desire inside you. Just keep going after it. That's awesome. I love it. Is there anything else you wanted to say before we go?
No, man, you can find me on Instagram at Brodie, BRODIE _KERN. You can find me on my website at BrodieKern.com. And reach out to me if you ever have questions, you know, if you're going through any sort of fear, any sort of addiction problem, I'm always there. You know, I almost always respond to messages, texts, calls, whatever. Hit me up.
That's awesome. Hey, guys, I hope you learned a lot. I got a lot of value. I hope you did, too. If you have anything, Brodie is a great guy. He just loves certainly helping with people. So if you have an addiction problem, it could be anything with addictions because addictions all run along the line, hit up Brodie, follow him on Instagram, watch his story as he's moving forward. And if you guys can, you know, book him for a speaking gig or anything like that. He has a great story and a great message to help you guys all out. You know, thank you so much for being on the show, Brodie. I hope to talk to you soon.
Absolutely. See you, man.
Hey, take care. And before you go, I just wanted to say thank you for listening and being a part of the Lil Hustler community. I hope you got value from this episode and know what to execute on. Remember, if you stay consistent, it's only a matter of time until you have your ideal lifestyle. If you want to truly elevate your game, go visit www.thelylmovement.com and click the Lil Wolf tab. I'd greatly appreciate your feedback, so email or leave a review, as well as subscribe to the show. Always be clear on your ideal future lifestyle and what you need to do daily to create it. Thanks again, keep grinding, and I'll see you next week, hustlers.